Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely pumped you're here today because we're going to lock down those easy must-have marks in the ACCA Business and Technology Communication topic. If you're currently prepping for your ACCA BT exam, well, you already know the deal. Time is tight and literally every single mark counts. But here's a little secret. There are actually certain topics where the examiner practically hands you the points on a silver platter, as long as you know exactly how to play their game. So let's dive right into this and make sure you walk into that exam room completely bulletproof.
Let's kick things off with a pretty brutal, honest question. Are you dropping points on the absolute easiest section of the exam just because you aren't paying attention to the examiner's tricks? Look, it happens to the best of us. You study all those complex theories, you memorize the really hard formulas, and then you get to a super simple question about communication and you overthink it, you start second-guessing yourself. The examiner knows exactly how to make a totally straightforward concept look, well, tricky in a scenario. But today, we're going to fix that for sure.
All right, Section 1. What is true communication? Let's get back to basics.
So here's your textbook definition, and you need to know this cold, like recited in your sleep level of cold. Communication is simply the process of sharing information. That's it. It isn't just about talking loudly in a room or sending a beautifully formatted report. At its very core, the ACCA syllabus defines this simply as a process. Information has to successfully move from point A to point B.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates our one-line golden rule for this entire topic. Communication is all about sharing the actual meaning, not just throwing words at someone. Think about it. If you speak for a solid hour, but the other person doesn't understand your core message, communication hasn't happened. It just failed. And let me tell you, the examiner loves to test this exact distinction. They're going to give you a scenario where, say, a manager sends out an email, but the team completely misinterprets it. Your job is to spot that. Because the meaning wasn't shared, the whole communication process broke down.
Moving right along to Section 2, two types of communication. We'll be comparing verbal versus written. You've got to instantly recognize the difference between verbal and written communication the second you see them pop up in a scenario. Verbal communication is basically your face-to-face speaking and your team meetings. Written communication, that's your emails, your formal reports, your memos. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is incredibly simple, right? But you'd be surprised how often students just skim past these details in the exam. When a scenario specifically says an email was sent, your brain needs to immediately flag the word written. If it mentions a boardroom discussion, boom, flag it as verbal. Building this quick recognition muscle is a total game changer and saves you crucial minutes.
Which brings us to Section 3. Beware the communication barriers. It's time to spot the traps.
Okay, these are the 3 specific roadblocks you have got to hunt for in the exam text: language issues, physical or mental noise, and complete misunderstanding. When you're reading a scenario, you need to be like a detective looking for clues. Did they mention that the staff spoke different native languages? Or maybe they used heavy technical jargon that the other department didn't get. Boom, language issue. Was there literally loud machinery humming in the background, or was the receiver just way too stressed out to listen? That's noise. Or did they just completely get the wrong end of the stick? That is a classic misunderstanding.
So, here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. If a scenario says someone misinterpreted an email, do not overthink it. That is a communication failure caused by a barrier, plain and simple. I see students all the time trying to link a misunderstood email to some complex management theory or agency theory or something else entirely. No way. If the email was read wrong, it's a communication barrier. Keep it simple, grab your easy mark, and move on.
All right, Section 4, dodging the exam traps through pattern recognition.
We're going to do a quick rapid-fire drill on this pattern recognition right now because you need to build this as a reflex. Ready? If they say email sent in the scenario, you say the answer is written. If they say meeting discussion, you say the answer is verbal. If they say message misunderstood, you say the answer is communication barrier. The examiner writes these scenarios using very specific trigger words. If you can map those trigger words to the correct concepts, you literally bypass all the confusion and go straight to the right answer. It's like a giant puzzle, and it really just comes down to pattern recognition.
Next up, Section 5, fixing common student mistakes and how to stop overcomplicating everything.
Look, step 1 is you've got to stop ignoring the barriers hidden in the text. Read the scenario fully and identify what is actually happening. If they go out of their way to mention a noisy factory floor, well, it's there for a reason. Step 2, stop overcomplicating things. I really cannot stress this enough. If you see a language difference, mark it as a communication barrier and just move on. Don't sit there for 3 minutes debating if it's an organizational structure issue.
Choose the most direct answer and trust your training.
Finally, Section 6, Final Exam Motivation. Let's outline your bulletproof strategy.
Okay, you need to get onto that ACCA practice platform like yesterday. And when you do those multiple choice questions, timer strictly on. You've got to get used to the pressure of the clock ticking down. When you get something wrong, and you will, we all do, review every single mistake deeply. Figure out exactly why you chose the wrong option. And finally, attempt full mock exams without ever hitting the pause button. 2 full hours straight through. You've got to train like you fight.
Here is a game-changing personal tip straight from our source material. Take a screenshot or a photo of your wrong answers on your phone. Look at them every morning when you wake up and every night before you go to sleep. Seriously, you will learn far, far more from your mistakes than from just passively reading your notes over and over. By reviewing your errors daily, your brain is going to start recognizing these exact patterns and examiner traps when you finally sit down for the real thing.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Are you going to let the examiner trick you out of easy points with a simple misunderstood email scenario? Or are you ready to lock down this knowledge, spot those communication barriers instantly, and absolutely pass this exam? The strategy is right in front of you. Now go execute it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy studying.